Hi there. I think we'll kick off now. I was giving you a little bit more time, kind of like last week's session actually, as the weather is so good. If people are outside, come back in, or remember that 4 o'clock is the time to come out of the sun, and yeah, learn about some kind of health tech strategy. As you can see, I'm in a bit of a different location, so hopefully the Wi-Fi is just as strong. I'm sure it would be, but if it does drop out for whatever reason, it should just restart. So far, touch wood, it hasn't happened yet. So we should hopefully be smooth sailing. And for those that don't know me, my name is Sam. I head up the account management team at Featurely. I've been here for a couple of years now. I see some familiar faces on the call. I see Declan, James, Martin, Sharon. It's really good that you could all join. And yeah, like I said, for those that don't know me, I'm just one of the account managers here. So by all means, use the Q&A function in Zoom if you've got any questions through today's session. Probably look to cover them at the end of today's session, which probably won't take the full hour. These tend to be around 45 minutes maybe. First half an hour of content, and then the second half of some Q&A. So yeah, and also one other thing as well, I will be sending out the recording. So you should have everything that you need, as well as any documents. I'm also going to be running through some slides today. So I've gone all out, and I'm using some slides as well. So I'll send out the recording as well as the slides, any material I think is relevant. By all means, do just ask any questions as we go along. So cool. I'm going to share my screen and have a look at this. Cool. So what we're looking at today is how to health check your clients into extra advisory services. So it's a bit more strategic, this one. The previous webinars that I've been doing have been a bit technical to how we can build out certain things. There's going to be an element of this in today's session, but it's going to be more around how we start to position the work that you can do in Featurely to stimulate more conversation and really start to open up those better conversations. So it is a strategy that works. What we're going to run through is something that I've done with some of my clients already, so in my portfolio, and it really is a strategy that we've seen work in the market. It's got some really good responses from the portfolio of clients I've been working with, and yeah, it's a fairly straightforward thing. There's nothing, no rocket science, not reinventing anything that's kind of too complicated. It's just simply around a discovery session, really. So that free half-hour chat. So what we need to do is set that chat up though with those clients with the focus that we're supporting them for the year ahead. So it's all about looking forward. It's not necessarily at this stage going to be looking at past data, about past actual information. We are simply going to be looking ahead, which I think in current times is quite timely. Things are changing obviously every by the day, and legislation is coming out, and local lockdowns are happening and things. So being able to look forward, start to plan and put some procedures in place, I think is really key. And because it's a strategy that maybe we haven't gone through yet with yourself, or something that is a bit newer to yourself, I think it's good to ring fence some friendly clients just to kind of try this out on, I suppose, and we can then start to work through to some other more complicated clients if we need to. But therefore, what we need to do is just contact that client, mention that we're setting up this no strings attached discussion, where we're looking to support that client for the year ahead. Then we need to do a bit of meeting prep. So in Advisor, we're now going to have a look at those 3 steps, really straightforward: how we connect an organization, how we build a forecast, and how we then present it as a board. So if I now go into that, hopefully we can all see my screen still. And what we're going to do is come into the forecasting section. So we're going to assume we've now got those clients meetings set up. They're coming to the office at some point over the next week or so, and we're now doing this meeting prep. So really straightforward. We come to the forecasting section. We'll have our list of all our clients here. If we haven't built our forecast, again, these settings will appear. Just fill them in. That then handles VAT for you. No need for you to change anything. It just builds up that liability on a quarterly basis and then pays it off. So VAT is all done and dusted. It's then just putting in the default accounts, which is then required, so it knows how to which account is your bank account, for example. When that's done, we can then click New, and we've then got these options here. So just to quickly recap again, for those that might have seen this for the first time, create from scratch, that's a completely blank canvas really. CSV import, where we can upload a forecast that we've got already in Excel. Create from a copy. If you've got one in Futurely and you want to copy it, you can do that. And you've got create from last year's actuals. So we're going to use last year's actuals here. And all we're going to do is use the quick create option. So if I call this here, maybe strategy or something, we'll put it just to a 1 year. I'm going to click build on August 20. So we then got that built out straight away. Really straightforward, really quick and easy to do, and it's built out a 3-way forecast. This is where we build that forecast out. It's kind of like our forecast workshop. And just to explain these numbers, what this is last year's P&L applied to today's balance sheet. So if we're looking at this value here, the 168,000, that is August 19's figure. Now showing us August 20, and we've now got September 20, 173,000. That's exactly the same as August as September 19. So we are looking at the year as if they had no changes, and it's a really good one to have as like a benchmark or start to put in the findings that we have from this meeting. It'll become clear when we kind of move through this session, but really straightforward. As I keep mentioning, it's just simply building a forecast from last year to give a good indication of what we can do moving forward. And because we're going to be doing this at scale, maybe with a few clients at a time, we don't want to make the session too involved. It's also a free half-hour session, so obviously there's no kind of revenue derived at this point. So we want to keep the time as minimal as possible, but also the output as maximum as possible, really, because the client doesn't know that we view something as efficient as Futurely, that's built out a 3-way forecast really quickly. This might seem as taking a bit longer to the end result, but we've presented something or started to build something anyway that has got some really good, powerful insight there. So once we've done that, quick create last year's actuals, simple as that. We're then going to go into the boards. We're going to present this report as a forecast cash flow. So we're going to go into my boards. We're going to locate the discovery session. And as these instructions say, all we need to do is click duplicate to that report. We then need to remove the instructions and the how-to video. We can then rename this to say health check, I don't know, client A or client name or whatever you want to put in there. And then just going to hit refresh. Let's see what all catches up. And then what we're going to do is change the board to look at the client in question. By clicking bulk edit organizations, we can then change it to Real Story Productions. That's the one we just built out that last year's actuals forecast. These questions we're going to cover in a sec, but down here is what we really need to look at. So we're going to rotate this round, simply change it to the forecast. That's the reason why I didn't load, because we haven't told it which forecast to look at yet. And then click done. Okay, and this is our prep completed. This is their year now looking ahead with no changes. This is their year that is the same as last year, but now reflecting as cash. And what we're going to do effectively during the meeting is, well, we're going to come on to it. Let's have a look at that, because we're going to keep this in the back pocket effectively. We do the prep, and we're not going to present the client straight away this information. So what we're going to do is instead these steps here. So we've done our prep now, and now we've come into the meeting. So the client's going to come in, or probably not come in at this current stage. So I put grab them a coffee, so I'm kind of being optimistic, grab them a coffee there, but maybe give them, I don't know, a virtual coffee, if that even exists. But effectively what I'm trying to say there is that it's a relaxed agenda. So we're trying to just make it as easy as possible. And we're always keeping the meeting, however, on the year ahead. So it's going to be a relaxed discussion. We don't want the client to then start to give you their life story. We want to keep it kind of concise and to the point, because what we're doing effectively is just discovering more about that client. And so we're going to be asking open-ended questions. So things like, what's your biggest concern? We're maybe going to rephrase questions. So rather than saying, have you won any contracts recently? We're instead going to be looking at what contracts have you won recently? So really opening them up to avoid yes, no answers, to then instead having an answer that could be quite broad, such as what is your upcoming hiring strategy? And the key thing here is that we're going to be doing maybe 10, 20% of the talking in this meeting. We're going to let the client do all the talking. There's a real art of, I suppose, listening to the client and understanding more about the business. Because this is what the session is all about. We're discovering what their real issues are, what their concerns are, what keeps them up at night, what they're looking to achieve over the next few months, and bring that into the year ahead discussion of what we're posing here. So ensuring that we're talking a lot less than that client is going to ensure that that client is really driving the session. It's not a pitch necessarily. We're not here to, as the accountant, I suppose, deliver work to a client. We're not saying buy this forecast for £1,000 or whatever it is straight up front. We're effectively positioning the value of it, and the kind of cost comes secondary. So after we've then taken down all our notes, we've had that coffee, we've really listened to that client for maybe 20 minutes of the session or so, and just noting down everything that's coming up. And the client's then giving you some really good gold. So they might be saying, for example, they're looking to hire 2 new staff members because they've seen an upturn from the COVID. Maybe they're making toilet roll, or maybe they're in a business that's actually boomed. So they're looking at that, or maybe they're thinking that times are quite tough and how can they manage that? Maybe they're considering letting some staff go, or maybe they want to move office at the end. We can then start to tie that into that forecast, because what we can now do is then flip our laptop round and show them the report that we've just built out, that forecast cash flow. So we've talked to them, we've taken on the notes, and we've now going to flip the laptop round, or we're going to deliver this report in front of them on a piece of paper, and it's simply going to be that forecast cash flow. So we can now see that, we can now say rather that in preparation for this meeting, you've had a look at their past data, started to forecast that out to give us a bit of indication as to what their future might look like. However, you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, have now told me that you're looking to do these differently. You're looking to hire those new staff members, or you're looking to move office. So what we need to do by looking at that forecast is work those objectives into this forecast to make it a real deliverable piece. So we can start to see the trends of what happened last year. So in the middle of the summer, you might see a peak in demand if their kind of summer kind of left itself that way. But maybe they've now told you that they're looking like they might have a worse summer due to COVID. We can start to now flex that into that forecast, and that's what the follow-up session is all about. So we're now going to position that value, like I said, ahead of the cost, because what the session is all about is understanding what the client is looking to achieve over the next few months. We're discovering about that. We've now shown them like a taste of, I suppose, of what can be done in futurely, and the way that you want to support that client. And now, if that client wants to achieve those objectives, we can then pull those objectives into that forecast. So if the client wants to move office by the end of the year, they will need to take you up on this forecasting service. Otherwise, they're just going to be hoping for the best, really. Because if you're running a business, you surely need to understand where you're going. You need to have the accurate sat nav in play. There's no, the fact that's kind of thrown around in this space a lot of the time is that 50% of clients fail in their first 5 years. And obviously there's a variety of different reasons for that. But a real key one is a lack of insight into the future, not really understanding cash flow and how that can impact their business. So we've now positioned the value, because we're going to say to that client, I'm going to support you through those months ahead. I'm going to ensure that we meet those objectives by having a proper plan in place. So therefore the cost is kind of secondary, because that value that you can give to that client to achieve their goals is invaluable in a way. So as I said, that strategy does work. So I'd like to say that a lot of the time those clients are going to want to book that follow-up call, that follow-up meeting, because in that follow-up meeting is when we're then delivering a real piece. It's going to be a chargeable piece. It's going to be a more in-depth forecast presented with maybe a couple more charts. Nothing too in-depth. It's just going to be a bit more kind of tailor-made, I suppose, than that one forecast cash flow. We're going to effectively deliver a proper forecast report to that client and then talk it through with the client. And we've now started that journey, and over the months ahead, we can kind of continue on that journey with the client as they meet those objectives, as we start to really deliver a full advisory service to that client. If they say no and they don't fancy it, which is absolutely fine, this obviously is not going to work for everyone, we still book that follow-up. It won't necessarily be as soon as that. I would say for the yes to the follow-up will be maybe a month later, depending again on the client's specifics. If they've got something really urgent they need next week and they want you to deliver it then, if you can, then great, but probably about a month. And if they say no, maybe 3 to 6 months, just to check in, see how they're getting on, because like I mentioned before, the world is changing all the time. We need to be as on top of it as we can. And maybe using the alerts is a great way to help prompt us as well. So if they say no, we can then start to set up alerts, because they've already given us some really good information, such as they're really concerned about the bank account. It keeps going overdrawn, for example. We can set up an alert to trigger if that happens. So when that does happen in that 3 to 6 month period, we're going to give the client a call and be like, hey, I've seen this has happened. Are you okay with it? Do you want any further support? How are you getting on, really? Same thing, we can set up an alert to say maybe if their wages to sales are not as efficient as they want them to be. We can start to really be proactive and alert them to that. And then the final step there is that PDF alert. So if the client wants a takeaway, we can quite easily pull that forecast cash flow into a printed report, just by hitting print really on the actual card. You'll then print it out on one big A4, and the client can then take it away with them. And that's still valid on both the yes or the no, because if yes, great, they're going to have a look at that report over the next few days, and we're going to kind of exaggerate that and really build on it. If they say no, they're then going to have a reflection, and it'll be a good way to have a hand down, a bit of a reminder of the services that you can kind of provide, really. That's pretty much it. It's as straightforward as that. It's simply about discovering what that client really wants, what they're looking to achieve, and how we can then quite easily present something in Futurely to show that we've done a bit of prep. We've really started to think about what the client is looking to achieve, and then pulling those objectives into that forecast, we can now support that client for the year ahead. So I'll stop it there. By all means, if you've got any questions, so a few of them have come in, do whack them in the Q&A function, and I'll look to cover them off if I can. So yeah, one of the questions that's come through is the forecast a three-way forecast? And yep, it is. It's a fully integrated three-way forecast. So we've obviously got cash flow, which is key, and what the others in the market, I suppose, are going to concentrate on. But us at Futurely, we think a good full business approach, where we've got the P&L, the balance sheet, and the cash flow, really allows for that kind of concrete, full business support that you can provide to them. Because if you are supporting them for the year ahead, we need to have a look at all those measures. And one more question that just come in is just another recap on the VAT element. How is VAT handled? It's handled just automatically, straight from Futurely. So on those settings that we first had a look at, if you just input the fact that it's last day of the VAT return is maybe end of August, quarterly, 20% tax, we'll then just pay that VAT on a quarterly basis in the liability, and then pay it off a month and 7 days as you would have put in there. So yeah, VAT is certainly accurate. It's not just a look at last month. I think that's key in that cash flow when we're presenting it in that first, albeit introductory forecast. We've got an accurate reflection of their VAT. That's all the questions that actually come through today. It's only a couple. One more just popped up. Let's have a look. When doing the forecast, we do need to enter some assumptions, e.g. on payment terms. Is there an easy way of keeping track of all those assumptions? Yeah, so when you are building through a forecast and maybe putting in extra levels, so maybe let's say that client has said yes to that first discovery session, and we're now building out that more detailed second forecast. We can now edit any of the lines. So just click on the little cog, edit that forecast, and add in a credit term or change it, whatever. If you are then making multiple changes, we can then keep an audit trail of that by using the text field just above it. So there isn't an automatic one, but we can write down any options just above where you're writing the forecast. You'll see like an add edit note field. It's quite large. You can fit lots of notes in there. So by all means use that function. You can also rename any of the forecast rows that you're doing. So if you're, for example, doing food sales and we're increasing that by 10%, you could just simply rename that food sales increase 10%, so you know exactly what that forecast is showing you. Cool. So yeah, that about wraps it up. So hopefully you can go off and enjoy the sun. These webinars are continuing. We're next week on Thursday. I don't know what the weather will be like next week, but I'm sure it'll be another hot one. But yeah, next week should be a good one as well. I'll send out all the details of that in the follow-up email. If you've got any questions, like I said, by all means, then just fire them myself. You've got the support team as well, support@future.com, and obviously any other of our account managers that you might be speaking with. So I hope you found that useful. Really keen to use any of your feedback. This next kind of section has been molded from feedback. So consolidation is one that's been asked for a lot. I think that's actually what's coming up next is consolidation and tracking. So yeah, hope that was useful, and I'll send out all the stuff, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks a lot. Cheers then.